Hello everyone and welcome to Helix Plays Games. My name is Richie and joining me this week is, at the Helix Daddy, at CyberChris2077, Mr. Chris.
Hello everyone. Is that a separate tag now? At the Helix Daddy on Twitter?
I just saw in the show notes, and the intro it just says Helix Daddy. It's like, I don't know whether I wrote that and can't remember writing it, or you wrote it, or Rob did, but I just saw it.
It could be like a risky thing to check on Twitter, couldn't it?
Yeah,
like
still
that.
at CyberChris2077 for now. I've not embraced the dad being my entire life yet. But yes, hello everyone.
And also, Mr. Rob.
Not Daddy, just Rob.
Not the dad.
Some people call you Daddy.
I do.
Well, you know, personal life.
Oh, God. We've got a great show lined up for you this week where we'll be discussing Game Pass going global, Ubisoft Plus is finally here, and Starfield Showcase details. All that and much, much more on this week's XPass. But before we get into it, make sure if you haven't already, you like the video, subscribe to the channel or your podcast feed of choice with notifications switched on so you're kept in the loop of all our great content here at Helix Plays Games, such as our other podcast, Talking the PS, where we break down all the news for you on the Sony side of gaming. So if you're interested in PlayStation, you want to check that out every single Tuesday on YouTube and podcast services. We have weekly live streams where last week I played Ghostwire Tokyo on Xbox Game Pass, which coincidentally is actually also on PlayStation Plus Extra. So if you're interested in that game and you've got either console, you can play it. And it's actually really fun.
Fill your boots. Yeah, it looked fun from what you were playing of it. It actually, the aesthetic of the menus and stuff was enough to actually intrigue me a little bit more. Because it was a nice slick, like black and white layout. It looked sharp and clean. And the kind of the visual artist in me was like, oh, that looks quite good to just click around in. And then, yeah, from what I saw you playing the game like this past week, it looked really fun.
It's more fun than I expected it to be honest. If I didn't have so much other games like kind of stacked up that I want to play at the moment, I would have considered continuing playing. If you know when you get one of them quiet points in the calendar, that's when it's like, oh, all right, maybe I'll go back to it.
Well, the benefit, I guess, with it being owned by Xbox is it should, in theory, stay on Game Pass forever now. So if you ever need to go back, you're pretty covered.
I think it was PlayStation Plus Extra from March as well, so realistically it's going to be on there for a while as well.
Yeah, I think that was Sony trying to like rinse the last bit of juice they could get out of it before Xbox like took ownership back into their own house. So no surprise. Yeah, let's just promote it the hell out of it on PlayStation just a month prior to it launching on Xbox.
Yeah,
Smart.
We know it's going on Game Pass next month, so let's just get in there first while we still can.
Yeah, give it away.
I do think if I was to go back and play, I would start again on PlayStation.
Oh.
Purely on the grounds of, well, I have it on both platforms, and I think I have an Xbox Series S, not an X, so my PS5 is going to be, you're going to get better performance out of it.
Better frame rate you're talking about here.
No, frame rate was fine. It's just, there's times like, I don't know if you've noticed this, Chris, on the Series S, like, reflections and mirrors tend to sometimes just not be existent. I noticed it a few times. There's a few things that I would have expected to be there. It's not game-breaking stuff.
Okay, that's a very niche problem to have in a video game.
Yeah, well, that's
like
just it's just an example that I noticed, but it's things like that where actually I think the visual fidelity would be better on the PlayStation 5 as opposed to the Series S.
I'd hope so. Obviously, yeah, the S being the lesser of the more powerful consoles.
And then
I imagine that's just one of these things they can just cut out when they don't have to render a reflection if they don't need to.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff. And then you also get to use the DualSense with all its like things like haptic feedback and stuff that the Series controller doesn't have.
So check out Richie's first look at Ghostwire Tokyo on PlayStation on Talking the PS tomorrow.
Yeah, indeed.
This is a strong start to an Xbox podcast.
Well, I mean the first news story this week's probably going to set the tone. So
yeah, I mean, I could have played it on either, but I said in the stream as well, like, yeah, it's if you have a Series X, you're probably, if I was playing that on Series X rather than Series S, I would just stick with Series X. But if it's one of them things when you have the game on multiple platforms, and one platform is objectively superior in terms of the hardware in it than the other, why would you play on the weaker platform?
That's a good point.
But what have you guys been playing?
I'm pressed for time, as you can imagine, so I've been playing quite a little bit of FIFA. Although I did check out randomly last night at about 11:30, I think it was, using my Razer Kishi on, funnily enough, not on Xbox, sorry, again, great start to the Xbox show, but on Amazon Luna, of all things, I was checking out Guacamelee 2 randomly. So I played the first Guacamelee way back in the day on the PlayStation Vita. Great game, Drinkbox Studios, fantastic little kind of side-scrolling brawler. Features a luchador wrestler who ends up going through the Mexiverse and ends up fighting the dead and everything like that. And he's guided by a very interesting llama that's got loads of wisdom and can turn into an old man and a llama. It's a very trippy game, but it plays on the humour very, very well. And this is the sequel to it, so jumped in on Luna, enjoyed some of that on my Razer Kishi, and other than that, dabbled in FIFA. I did download Rise, Son of Rome, after we spoke about it on last week's show. I know a couple of people in our comments section said it's quite a short campaign, about 6 or so hours, which does have me kind of pegged to really, really check it out. However, it is the 10th anniversary of Rise, Son of Rome this year, believe it or not, so I'm kind of maybe holding off for us to do like a shared playthrough of it, Richie or Rob.
All right,
to kind of experience, see if it holds up a decade later with it having this cult following. I thought rather than me just play it on my own in the middle of the night, we could do something on the channel to kind of celebrate its 10th year anniversary and see if it holds up a little bit. So I've put a pin in that one.
Stick it in the schedule for streams.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get it done.
It's crazy that game's 10-year-old because in my head it's like 5 or something, maybe.
It was
Xbox One launch.
Yeah, my perception of time just breaks down after 2 years and beyond. It all just kind of mingles into one, I think.
It's like most millennials. Anything after 2000 is counted as everything before that is in 1980s onwards is just in the past, and 2000 to 2020 is the current, but it really isn't. It really isn't now.
Well, for me, COVID kind of just warped my sense of time and reality, because for how long it felt like we were in COVID also seemed to go over retrospectively really quickly.
It did.
And it's kind of condensed and extrapolated. It's kind of weird. My sense of time is. Anyway, Rob, what have you been playing?
Well, on sense of time being kind of warped and kind of unmanageable, I fell back into the Civ 6 kind of wormhole, if you want. So, yeah, I think we talked about it. Was it last week or the week before? And the fact that I was seeing it in Game Pass's menu of games just made me jump back into it. It was a mistake.
That's all it took.
Did you enjoy your time with
many
it?
Hours. I'm still enjoying my time with it.
So is it really a mistake then if you're enjoying yourself?
Yeah, but there's things I'm not doing, which is the issue.
Okay, if it's getting in the way of actual things that you were meant to do as an adult, a functional member of society.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was 4 a.m. last night, maybe.
That's a late one.
2 a.m. the night before. It's not great. But I'm just.
Dogs haven't been fed. You've not had a shower in several days.
No, I'm just killing knights with my jet fighters and stuff like that at this point, because I always rush the science game. So yeah.
So is this you now establishing your dominance over weaker civilizations who haven't got up to scratch with their technology yet?
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, it's what would happen if a reverse Independence Day scenario happened, where it's you're the really advanced species, and yeah. So I'm just going through that at the moment, which is nice. But we'll see.
How about you, Richie? Anything other than Ghostwire?
Just chipping away at Octopath. I have slowed down a little bit on Octopath because I was burning through it. But the game is huge. It's one of them. I looked at the map the other day and it's I think I've logged about 30 to 40 hours into it. So you'd think realistically I should be about halfway through the game. Nowhere near. Literally nowhere near.
This is a JRPG though, right?
Yeah, but even then, I think for example, I think for Final Fantasy 15, I got the platinum in about 100 hours. So you'd think that you'd be getting close to the midway point in the stories, about 40 hours in.
But are you enjoying your time with it?
I am. I think it's just going to be a slow burn. I'm going to slowly chip away at it, and then I don't know what's next for me though. I don't know whether it's going to be Jedi Survivor or Tears of the Kingdom.
Ooh, yeah. Is it when's Zelda out? May
something or other. I think
it's like a few weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, they're quite close to each other. Like they're close enough that it is genuinely. You have to pick and choose.
A concern for me.
Not a concern. It's like it's more of a which one do I play first rather than which. But yeah, I think Octopath is going to be my game probably for the rest of April, and then going into May it'll be either Tears of the Kingdom or Jedi Survivor. I was very much before the most recent trailer, Jedi Survivor, because as much as I loved Breath of the Wild, for me it did have some major flaws which so far haven't been addressed. They still, from what I've seen, haven't been addressed. But then they dropped a story trailer and it's like, oh, actually, the story in Zelda can be really, really good, and that was one of the things I didn't like about Breath of the Wild. The story was good, but kind of obscure, and you had to find memories just out in the wild, and it's just like it didn't kind of have that nice pacing.
Do we think Link's going to talk in this one?
No, I don't think Link will ever talk, more than grunts and stuff. I know you have a thing about characters not talking, but he's meant to be a conduit to you exploring that world.
Yeah, but it's odd that this is something I won't go into it here. I won't go into it here. It's 2023, but that's fine. Everyone else talks, but him. That's fine.
But it's a choice, not
like
a
Claude from GTA.
Yeah.
Anyway, would you like to introduce us to the
excellently exuberant, excavated Xbox expose, aka the news.
The news.
I'll be honest, I forgot I'm the person who was supposed to say the news after that for some reason. I said the kind of rigmarole.
We still don't have this nailed down, do we? After
it's in the show notes. It's literally written. Chris, would you like to introduce us to the ...
Yeah, but as I said it, for some reason, my brain just doesn't work right now. So
that's fine. He's got daddy brain. But who doesn't have daddy brain? Our Helix Heroes, although actually some of them probably do. No one gone by our Discord server. Which you can join for as little as 99p, such as John Burford did, Orange Thunder did, and Lawrence van der Star did. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome. Into our first topic of the week. So we've talked about Tears of the Kingdom and Jedi Survivor kind of being the big games coming in May. There's meant to be a third one that maybe not landing as well as they would hoped. Redfall. Let's talk about Redfall.
Redfall. Can this game catch a break? It's almost suffering. It's suffering from a lot of things. It's that kind of the Xbox stigmatism of the first-party games are either delayed massively or they just don't hit home as well. And people feel like, I think we've said on this show, we kind of ebb and flow between whether we're that overly interested in this or not. And then this is just kind of pulling the rug out from under them, like a mere weeks before launch to come out and announce that a first-party game will not be hitting 60 frames per second for a shooter.
It's
in
cyberpunk.
Today's world is like...
It's the kind of cyberpunk effect where you start... It's Stadia as well. Right on the edge of launch, you start pulling features, you start taking away things that were expected to be there. So, I mean, we have to put it in context as well. It's not just... It's only going to run at 30 frames per second at launch. It's also... They came under a bit of backlash before with it being always online, even though there's a single-player mode. So there's at least two things that they need to work on before the game is realistically at 1.0 in terms of how I think most people would see it.
Yeah, I think for me it's just there's too many
coughs, frogs in your throat.
Too many coughs. Like for me, for like a new IP, which like Microsoft is pinning a lot on, in terms of promotion and how much they're pushing it, to kind of literally drop the ball about like a foot away from the goal line just seems a bit amateurish, if I'm going to be honest. Like there's lots of games you can have at like 30 FPS and it has no bearing on the quality. Like I'm definitely not like an FPS type of kind of zealot or whatever, but it's a first person shooter and it's a new first person shooter, and like
yeah, I think
how can this have happened? Like, come
for
on.
any game that relies on fast pace or precise movement, I think 60 frames per second is the expected. That is the bar nowadays. That is what you're meant to hit. 30 frames per second, I think, is fine for certain types of games. For example, turn-based RPGs like Octopath. I said to you before the show, Octopath running at 60 frames per second would almost feel weird. It'd almost feel too smooth for the presentation of that game. But that's not a fast-paced, Twitch-based first-person shooter.
Yeah, to give context, yeah, they tweeted out, didn't they, saying Xbox consoles will get a quality mode only. So that's Series X will be 4K 30, Series S will be 1440p 30, and a 60 frames per second performance mode will be added via game update at a later date.
It feels like the wrong way around.
Yeah. Even with a Series X, I would be very... No, I mean, very, very annoyed is a strong term, but if you had a Series X, which remember Microsoft promote as the world's most powerful console, and their first-party exclusive, which has been... Remember, this was delayed from last summer. This is already coming out a year later than it was originally supposed to. And at launch, they, like you said, Richie, for a Twitch-based shooter, they can't nail down 60 on their own hardware with their own in-house studio. And it, without comparing, because I know that's what everyone does, I don't think this would happen with a Sony first-party game. Like, Spider-Man ain't coming out without these features.
Oh,
later this year.
They've also meant to have smart delivery as one of the things, so as one of the key features of the series platform. So it's kind of like, well, I mean, we've all played. I'm assuming everyone who's listening to this has played like PC games. Like you go into the menus and you have all the slides, so all the different stuff, ambient occlusion, like all that sort of weird stuff. And if your PC's hardware isn't up to scratch, you start dialing things back until you get to a performance that you're happy with. So surely that's what they effectively need to do here. Go into the menu, and the toggle in my mind is just like effectively what you occasionally have in PCs, where you have presets like low, medium, high graphic quality. The toggle between performance and quality mode is, in my mind, effectively the same thing. You're just toggling some certain presets. So
yeah, I guess where like the actual origin of the issue's coming from, right? Like what you say makes sense, Richie.
Yeah.
But what have they had to do to get to this point where they've had to say like, oh no, we can't do this game in the industry standard now? Like, I think it's something a bit deeper, and it does concern me about the game overall, to be honest.
Yeah, I think. But what would you prefer? I want people to know in the comments below, what would people prefer? If assuming you're using a Series X, so the quality mode would be 4K 30, would you prefer 1080p 60? So it's not. I'm not even dropping to 2K. I'm dropping like almost like 2 tiers of like resolution there. Because I would, even if I had a 4K
obvious,
TV.
right?
Yeah,
it's like it's a completely obvious answer, but I don't know. Like I'm getting quite frustrated even thinking about this, because it's like,
if the answer's obvious that people would prefer 1080p 60 frames per second on the Series X and have a 4K mode come out later, surely that's a better way to approach it.
It's definitely more, I think, the optics of it, because all of the news websites and the podcasts that I follow have all kind of jumped on this, like, should Redfall be delayed? Embarrassing start, another first party fail for Microsoft, all that kind of stuff. And let's face it, the masses...
Calling it a fail is a bit much. It hasn't come out yet.
No, like just the fail of being able to implement your own game properly. But in terms of like the masses, the millions of people who are going to probably play this on Gamepass because it's free, people like me, like I've said many times on all of our shows, like I don't know if I can really tell the difference. Like if you put two in front of me and said, show me, I'd imagine I will be to some degree, but I've never really been hung up on frame rates. I think for me personally, it's not. It's a bigger issue because of the kind of journalism that surrounds it, and they're making it a big issue. Like, the news cycle is currently like, let's shit on Redfall because it's the easy thing to do. Whereas the game's not going to be really any different other than it's going to play a little bit slower, but I don't think I will be able to notice that because we'll probably play it on the channel via cloud anyway, so we're already being impacted by latency and drop. So I don't think it's that bad.
On Plague Tale, going from Plague Tale Innocence to Requiem, I did notice a difference in frame rate, and it did in... It's one of them, once you've noticed this, once you've played games regularly at 60 frames per second, going back to 30 makes everything feel like really quite muddy and like very slow and imprecise, and it's almost like if you're used to playing games at 4K, then you look at something at 1080p, and you go, you can immediately notice a reduction in visual quality. It's like that, but for the feel of the game. And because we have went through this generational shift, where there's a lot of things were hitting 60 frames per second in the previous generation, it almost feels like this is the new line that should be getting hit for these types of games.
Remember when The Hobbit was shot at 48 frames per second instead of the usual 24? And everyone felt it looked weird. It was like, because everyone since like the 1920s has been used to 24. Smooth. Yeah. And the CGI didn't help.
There's an interesting thing there. Like, I don't fully understand like why it looks weird in a movie, and like why that hasn't moved on with like the rest of kind of camera tech. I have no idea about that. It's like a really curious thing I've always wondered, but not too much because I've actually looked into it. I'm pretty sure the answer will be simple.
I wonder if in movies, is it just purely because everything is shot at 24 frames per second? So when you see something at a higher frame rate, it looks too smooth. Your brain's going, oh, that looks weird.
I don't know, I think it's curious.
Where, with games where you're more immersed, you're involved in what's going on, the more frames is generally considered to just be better.
Yeah, well, it's something down to just how much our brain can process in that fraction of a second, isn't it? There's only so much like colours and shapes and everything. There's
diminishing returns. Like, I think once you get beyond like 120 frames per second, it basically becomes imperceptible.
Just like life.
But it's like the jump from 30 to 60 is massive compared to the jump from like 60 to 90, which is massive compared to the jump from 60 to 120. It does suffer them like kind of exponential diminishing returns.
In video games as well, you've got to remember you've got the input element. So unlike a movie where you just sit and watch it, like a video game, you are actively processing things that happen and react from you twiggling your fingers around to actually seeing something translate to the screen. I think that disconnect is what feels weird. Like, you press left on the stick, and if it doesn't do it immediately, I think your brain is like, I do feel that, like, almost like
it gives
unconscious
you
lag.
You have more control because, well, you literally do have more control. You have twice the amount of frames to react to. So it's that extra precision that you can get, and there has been studies that have shown that it does help, like using like actual professional like first person shooter like top end esports players playing at different like frame rates has actually shown these, like, in terms of performance and like how it feels like.
Well, I guess it's just like match fitness for an athlete, right? You've got that, you're up to speed, you can react quicker, your times are better, you're sharper, or you're a little bit sluggish and you're slow because you've been eating too many cookies.
Yeah, so don't eat the cookies.
So Redfall 30 FPS equal bad.
That's bad, yeah.
I would say yes, however, the proof will be in the playing. Like, it might come out, and to be fair, I think a lot of people, I think you were touching on this a bit, Chris, a lot of people probably will jump, who've got Game Pass, and they're not paying attention to the news cycle, will jump in and go, hey, I like this game's really cool. But then a lot of people will also kind of go and go, can't play it. There'll be a lot of people. I'm looking at this game. It's not really changing my plans to stream this game right now. It's not. I'm not going, I'm not going to touch that because it's only 30 frames per second. But I do think it would be harder to actually keep me invested.
Yeah, Redfall, we've said a few times, it's suffering from an identity crisis similar to Gotham Knights and similar to Suicide Squad, which we'll talk about on tomorrow's Talking the PS. But there's just something about it that's just not. It's not grabbing audiences. It's not grabbing testers. It's not grabbing the journalists who cover it and the critics. And that's not a bad thing when your game comes out in just over 2 weeks. Like, that's not a good place to be in from a marketing and optics standpoint.
They're trying to distance themselves from it being like a Left 4 Dead clone. Yeah, keep showing things that make it look like a Left 4 Dead clone.
Yep.
So, yeah, I do think that's a bit of an identity crisis. So, just to wrap up this topic, would you delay it?
I think it's too late now. It's 2 weeks out. The thing is, they knew this was a problem probably months and months ago. Like, it wasn't just this week they went in the office and went, "Oh shit, guys, we've not done the 60 frames patch yet. Oh well, let's tweet out about it." Like, they've knew about this for many moons and have waited until now to maybe just get it out so late in the party that there's no time to cancel or delay.
That almost makes it worse, because then they're just throwing out a game effectively to die, which is like...
it's on Game Pass, so everyone's got it anyway. So it's like... We kind of... we'll talk about this around Suicide Squad. Like, how much money do you sink into development where you just have to draw a line under it and write it off? And I think Game Pass gives Microsoft the different out that if a game seemingly isn't hitting on all cylinders before launch... rather than delay it for another year and pay another year's worth of employment and developers and designers and whatnot, it's going on Game Pass, which is... they don't get any more money from Game Pass subs, is what I'm saying. Like, is Redfall really going to bring in more console sales and more Game Pass users, if we're honest? They probably look at the metrics and the early kind of customer reviews and scope that and go, it's not going to bring in that much more, so just send it out rather than sunk the cost of another 8-9 months development time. Whereas WB don't have that luxury, because if Suicide Squad bombs, then... that's 9 years of development they've already cost. So it's kind of like a skull and bones situation. But Microsoft have Game Pass that I think negates it a little bit, because it's already a sunken cost because it's going on their subscription service, if that makes sense.
It does. Rob, would you delay it?
Like, ideally, yes, but for all the reasons that Chris just said, I think it has to come out. And I think the only saving grace is that, like, as Chris said, like, games can have, like, longer, like, kind of more stable legs on Game Pass to get better over time without just being abandoned and, like, in the past, like, traded in, which...
Are we hoping for, like, a No Man's Sky situation here, where in, like, a year's time people go, actually, or when the 60 frames per second patch does finally drop, oh, Redfall's actually really good now.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be that bad, is it? Because
it
doesn't look like there's any features that have been kind of cut or anything. It's just a performance issue, so...
I think we'll come across overly negative, because I think the marketing has been a bit confused. It's still struggling to understand properly what the game is. Mm-hmm. And it's anytime you make a big bombshell like statement like this so late in the game, it's going to be something people are going to go, ooh. Like, if this wasn't on Game Pass and I had it pre-ordered, that's when you're starting to think, should I cancel my pre-order and wait for the game to be effectively, in quotes, complete?
Mm-hmm. But not long to find out. Yeah, apparently.
But it is on Game Pass, so we probably will be streaming it on launch.
Absolutely, it'll be fun. That's the thing. The game will be fun. It's just, if I was to purchase it or play it in my own time, I probably wouldn't. So unless something like the story gets its fangs in me, then yeah.
Well, this could be another Ghostwire Tokyo, where we were kind of mediocre, kind of like lukewarm on it, and then I played and go, actually, this is really fun.
We're so cynical. That's our problem.
You know what Microsoft will be hoping is really fun? Starfield. Because we have an announcement of a Starfield showcase and Starfield Direct and Xbox Games Showcase on June the 11th.
Starfield needs to hit for Xbox, doesn't it? It really, really does. I was listening to another Xbox podcast this week. I don't think it was that one, but yeah, they talked about like Microsoft again struggling with this. Like, they've got such a wealth of studios, and yet we're still yet to see anything. At this point, and I'll throw the question out to you that was posed on, I want to say it was IGN's Unlocked podcast, actually. Is Starfield a more important IP to Microsoft than Halo and Gears at this moment in time?
Yes.
Yeah,
unequivocally.
I'd say so too.
Yeah, well, because this is about to come out.
Isn't that mad to say,
Microsoft, Halo came out last year,
didn't
do what Microsoft wanted it to do. So a lot of people had a good time with it, but it didn't really... it's Halo is one of them titles where Microsoft needs it realistically to be in the conversation, like with like when people talk about The Last of Us or Ghost of Tsushima for Sony. It's in that bracket of title, and so if it doesn't fall into that kind of level of conversation, I think it is a bit of a flop. In that, if that is what you're setting the expectations for, the like pinnacle of Microsoft first party titles, that Sony have set the standard. So, like Nintendo have Tears of the Kingdom coming out. That will be in that sort of level of conversation that, like, The Last of Us always falls into, like Ghost of Tsushima fell into, like Spider-Man would inevitably fall into. The Last of Us is in that sort of conversation. Halo wasn't. Yeah. So, we're assuming Redfall's not going to be in there.
Doesn't look like
There's a lot of weight on Starfield right now.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because it's a new IP. Like that's the oddity to say that. Yeah, Halo is suffering for a multitude of reasons. Gears is just kind of radio silent. We've not seen anything from that since they kind of wrapped up the story with the last game. It is weird that they don't have like how after so like an entire generation of the Xbox One and all the investment they put into it. Like you can almost kind of see why they want to go for Blizzard Activision King, because bringing Call of Duty in house would be a big boon for them. But is it still in that conversation? And it's mad to think. I think Fallout 4 for me was the last big hype game that Bethesda got, and
which never lived up to the hype.
But it had
it did
that
well,
short turnaround.
But it was slightly disappointing compared to how people like looked at New Vegas and Fallout 3.
Yeah, then they shit the bed with Fallout 76, and they're trying to fix it to this day. But then this is Starfield. It's like it's almost on both Bethesda and Xbox to get this right. But
yeah,
I don't know. I'm still waiting for that awe-inspiring moment from Starfield. I know it's getting loads of hype, but I'm still yet to see that thing for me, which makes me stand up and go, "This! I can't wait to play this."
I'm the same. I think because it is effectively Skyrim in space, which, when Skyrim was at its peak, seemed like an awesome concept. But we're a decade removed from that.
It still seems like an awesome concept, right?
Yeah. But the proof is in the execution.
I think for me, like Microsoft and like by extension Bethesda have something to prove that they can actually create a new IP. Because, and going back to the original question, Chris, like that's why I think it's much more important than Gears or Halo. Which, let's be fair, like I love the Gears series, but those IPs are kind of in, if not a decline, just like a kind of like
Xbox
a steady
360 IP.
Yeah, right. It's not kind of, it's not new, and it's not like a. I think they just need to prove they still have it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the chops. So 2-hour showcase. Hopefully he will do that, right?
Hopefully, this has got to be. This is when the big drop. This has to be the showcase that gets people going. This is why you need to play Starfield. Other than where I feel at the moment they are kind of trading on that legacy of Bethesda a bit too much, which is worrying for Microsoft when considering what we've been talking about so far this episode. Like, there's a lot of hope resting on this game.
Is there any surprises you'd like to see outside of StarCraft? Not Starfield.
You mean like
that's how much it's sticking in my head as a.
So, as in what things that surprised me about Starfield, or as in other things that will be at the showcase?
Other things that are going to be at the showcase, because it's very keyly named Xbox Game Showcase and Starfield Direct. So, I think we're going to get like at least an hour of Starfield, right? Probably maybe.
There's going to be a significant chunk of it being dedicated to Starfield, because Starfield is clearly the tentpole title.
Mm-hmm. So what other little kind of toppings would you want from Xbox?
I think they need something big. I know you could just go, it's going to be Starfield, I'm going to pepper in some things like Hi-Fi, Roshan, Pentiment, and kind of these like passion projects that have been really well received recently coming out of Microsoft Studios. But I think they need at least one or two other big titles, whether it's from legacy IP or new IP, something to kind of go. Because again, at the moment we're talking about Gears is kind of feeling dated. Halo didn't land the way it did. People are no longer really expecting Redfall to be that to be what we were hoping it could be. They don't have much in the kind of quiver of like top level AAA titles at the moment, so they need to get some more stuff in there.
Indiana Jones.
That's what I was thinking.
I need a trailer for that. That's going to be like the big talking point aside from Starfield. In and amongst, no doubt, there'll be some Forza content dropped in there.
Forza's always going to do well.
Yeah, it's always going to do well for the audience that it caters to.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping, again, just something new. I think we'll see, obviously, the updates from the studios. We'll no doubt, you'd like to think, get a proper solid date for Hellblade, because I feel like they've teased that at like the last 6 showcases now. Like, yes, it looks beautiful. Yes, it runs fantastic in Unreal. Let's actually get it out now.
Hellblade, I think, would be a perfect kind of game of what I'm thinking that needs to be there. It's different enough from Starfield so it shows, it's going to show like kind of expanded repertoire. So we're not just pinning everything on Bethesda here.
Yeah,
it looks amazing. So I think it does kind of, and it's one of them. If Hellblade was a Sony first party title, you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Which is kind of where Microsoft is lacking in their library. So I'm actually really excited for what Hellblade could be for the Xbox audience.
Yeah, I just want to see what's next. We're kind of in that world with all 3 of the big players. Is that Sony aren't telling us what's on their slate. Xbox, there isn't really anything beyond Starfield on their slate, and Nintendo have been quite hush hush. Like, other than Zelda, it's just this weird scenario where the entire industry is in a stasis mode, waiting for what the next thing is, because
I feel weird. Nintendo can be hush hush because of Zelda.
Yeah, that's it. Like, when you've got that tentpole game to showcase and talk about, you want all of your focus energy on that, and that's, my guess, is what Microsoft are going to do with Starfield. Whether it's to the detriment of Redfall, and it's just kind of like, get it out, it doesn't matter what the frames are, because we're going to talk about Starfield for the rest of the summer anyway.
And Miyamoto's been hinting at Mario as well. So that
I can't believe we didn't get a Mario game for the movie, like a tie-in.
Honestly, if it wasn't for Zelda, I think if Zelda came out last year, I think we probably would have done.
It's like, we haven't had Odyssey since near the launch, right, of the Switch.
Was it a launch title? I think no, it wasn't a launch title. I think it came out a couple of months. It was in the launch window.
Yeah, which is just insane to think that we haven't had another Mario game yet. But that aside, it's all these 3 big players, Microsoft and Sony. Like, I think they just need to shake it up and actually tell their audience what's on the horizon and what to look forward to.
There's a few things that have been announced that we could probably see a bit more about. Whatever they're doing with Fable, like Perfect Dark was announced, I believe. Avowed. Avowed. I say the word. I think you've all heard the game mentioned, but can you right now picture what Avowed is?
Something with flaming arrows in the trailer. Like, they shot an arrow that went over an army and then landed in the ground, and then whatever it landed in got stood on and crushed. That's all I can really remember. Fantasy RPG.
I'm just straight up blanking on it right now, so that needs a bit more to get lodged in my brain. I mean, they've got Elder Scrolls 6, which is probably getting break glass in case of emergency moment, but I wouldn't expect to see that here because of Starfield. I don't think we'll see anything of Elder Scrolls 6 till Starfield's out. Because I think Elder Scrolls 6 is the next big thing for Bethesda after Starfield. So you don't want people looking at Starfield and going, I'm just going to wait for Elder Scrolls 6. And they could do something with State Decay, and I don't know, really.
There's a State Decay 3 rumoured for a while, but
yeah,
hopefully we'll find out a lot at the showcase.
Well, let's move on to probably a bit more positive news. Game Pass is expanding into more countries.
I kind of forget Game Pass is limited to certain countries. When we're fortunate enough to be in a country that has it, you kind of just, for better or for worse, forget about the rest of the world. Like, if you listed these countries and said, is Game Pass available in them, I would have just presumed, yeah, because it's Microsoft and they're all over the planet, and why wouldn't they be?
I was exactly the same. I mean, this is PC Game Pass specifically, and I'm with you there. I completely forgot that Game Pass wasn't just ubiquitous to wherever Microsoft is. So it's 40 new countries. I'll quickly read through. I
don't think you need to list them all. Really,
okay.
Yeah, like, go look at the blog. Look at the blog. It's Albania all the way through to Uruguay, and if you are in those countries, congratulations.
Congratulations if you live in North Macedonia or Lithuania or Latvia. You can now get PC Game Pass.
Yeah. Sorry, Zimbabwe.
It
ends in the U's.
Yes, but Oman gets it. and Costa Rica and Croatia and Cyprus. So
now you're just naming them, but in a different order. You're still doing what we said you wouldn't do.
Well, yeah, it's one of them things. It's just nice to, like, it's not a huge story that we can really discuss at length here, but I think it is nice to point out and go, yeah, it's now coming to more places, because I think apart from, like, the games coming at the moment, I think everyone that creates Gamepass is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, undeniably.
Yeah.
I will say as well, like,
And
the
games aren't
PC element of that is severely underrated. Maybe just in my head, but definitely, I think definitely in, like, the overall marketing. Like, it's a really, really great feature just to have, like, included in the price of, like, the actual Game Pass subscription.
Oh,
And,
God,
like,
yeah.
I find myself using it more and more. So
I think
Good
it's
job,
one of them
Microsoft.
things where if I was to play a PC game now, first of all, I'd check see if it's on PC Game Pass, because if it is, I have it. Straight up, I can now just play it. Don't have to think any further beyond that. And then if it's not on Game Pass, I'd check to see if it is on the Microsoft Store, like the Xbox Game Store for PC, before going to Steam. Steam is now effectively my second platform for PC gaming because of
same
PC
here.
Game Pass.
yeah, so thank
And
you,
that's
Microsoft.
just down to, like, the strength of Steam was always it give you a place where you can all have all your games in one place. But now Game Pass, with having so much that's effectively just part of my sub, means that I'd rather have stuff over there. But
Yeah, and it's got Age of Empires on as well, so that's the most important thing.
yeah, it's got all the Age of Empires.
Hasn't got Age of Mythology, has it? I don't think.
Not yet, but there is a remaster coming
Yeah.
at the end of the... Or Reforged, I think it was called. Can't wait for that.
Might have to do a stream of that when it comes out. We should do an Age of Empires stream, like
Add it
just
to the
a
dog.
multiplayer. Each of us, all three of us, we'll just start we'll just play for an evening.
Verse each other.
You would get wrecked in a strategy game. I'm not even.
Shots
Gonna
fired.
pretend.
It's going to
I'm
happen,
not-
guys. Let
I'm not
us
even
know in
gonna
the comments
pretend
if you
I'm
want to
not
see
confident.
me and Chris team up and wreck Rob on Age of Empires.
I'll team up as well.
Yeah,
Power game
Wait,
over here.
I'm worried that I know he is actually good at strategy games, so I'm going to rig it in our favour. You know what isn't rigged in our favour? The Xbox Elite Series 2 gets even more Design Lab options. So, would you guys buy an Elite Series controller?
I want one. I want several of them in all colours, but could I justify the price for any kind of Elite controller? 150 quid? No thanks. I'll stick with my basic one with its AA batteries.
I'm exactly the same. I want one. I won't buy one.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. As I look at it and go, yes, I think it is objectively better than the base controller, but there's nothing about the base controller that makes me think that it's worth, and I should drop another £100 on top of the price of one of them to get the features of it. I don't know. I'm glad there's bringing out more colours and customization options. That's always cool. I think I'd love for Sony to do a Design Labs thing. I'd love for Nintendo to do it, so you don't have to have mismatching bloody controller Joy-Cons, which has always annoyed me.
Yeah, the Design Labs just shits all over the competition when it comes to like variety and style and everything like that. They're, like, some of the combinations you can make are just so cool.
Yeah, me and you, Chris, we both have a Design Labs controller.
Mm-hmm.
Rob, you need to get one.
My initials on it.
And the thing is, the Design Labs controllers are no more expensive than just an off-the-shelf one. That is, to me, madness. Like, you're not even paying a premium for it. You just get to customize your own controller. It's great. But mine's Midnight Blue.
Why did you have Midnight Blue?
Because I've got a PS4 Midnight Blue controller, and the Sage's Founders controller is Midnight Blue, so it's almost like I'm building a collection of Midnight Blue controllers. So I need if Nintendo bring out a Nintendo Pro controller that is Midnight Blue, I'll probably buy one.
What about Luna?
Luna it's black and purple, so it's close enough, but they don't have other options. So, and yeah, but that's why I just decided to go Midnight Blue. Just so
why midnight and not like 11:56 p.m?
It's just the colour of it. I mean, it's Midnight Blue, but it's got some light blue stuff as well.
It's very nice.
Yes.
Look, right, you don't get threat level 1152, okay, or like anything like that. It's threat level midnight, okay? So it's midnight blue.
Banning the midnight
Threat level
blue.
10:15. Time for supper and an early to bed. All right, let's move on. Microsoft has signed another deal. This time it's with the UK-based telecoms company EE. So it's a 10-year deal to bring cloud gaming, to bring PC games by Xbox to something to do with EE.
This is longer than the Kevin
sense.
Bacon deal at this point.
Yeah, this is an odd one. So EE, obviously the UK's biggest mobile provider, millions of customers. Rootmetrics Independent Awards say they're the best network for 10 years running. So I guess for cloud gaming and stuff, that's fantastic from the Move Gaming. But I don't know what this deal means. Like, I really don't. It's a deal with a telecoms company to commit cloud gaming to something that, again, to reiterate many times on the show, Microsoft do not own Activision at this point. All of these deals they keep going out and making, that hasn't been signed and sealed yet. So it's just one of those nefarious deals that's in place in the eventuality when it goes through.
I think these deals are actually pushing Microsoft's arguments, though, by legally committing to stuff. It's helping the regulators kind of go... It's not just empty words that they're saying in the courtroom. There's actual signed documentation to say, if you let this go through, we're not just suddenly going to go Call of Duty is ours, no one else can have it anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's a confidence play as well. It's like, you know, like you can walk into anywhere with like a high-vis jacket. That's what Microsoft's doing. It's like, well, they must be buying it because they're doing all this stuff.
They're in charge. Yeah, it's... For context as well, EE, the way it combines with Xbox currently is if you're a customer on one of the kind of premium mobile plans, is you get a rotational option of perks, and you can opt in for Apple Music, Apple TV, Xbox Gamepass is one of them, BT Sport, so that kind of thing, and you basically rotate it out as you see fit. So with Xbox, I'm guessing this is a 10-year deal too. If you are a mobile customer, you have the option to just take Game Pass as a perk, and that's part of this deal.
Yeah, because so with EE contracts, I mean, I've recently signed a new one. There's some contracts where it's just your basic data, minutes sort of stuff, but there is some contracts where you can have, like, effectively, it's not bolt-ons, I think that's O2 what call them, but you can add these perks to your subscription, which effectively makes them cheaper. So if you wanted something like BT Sport, by having it as part of your EE contract, you pay less money over the course of your contract. I tend not to go for them because I tend not to have these sort of subscriptions active perpetually. But if I was someone like, for example, BT Sport, if I was going to have that on pretty much as a constant subscription, I probably would have done. I can see basic Game Pass being a thing there, and if it is a 10-year commitment, it might even be significantly cheaper. There could even be things I've signed a new contract with EE and we'll just give you 3 months of Game Pass for free, and maybe even chuck in a Kishi.
Yeah, well, we know they've had those promotions before. You buy a Samsung, you get Game Pass for the whole length of the contract, 24 months, and then you get a Razer Kishi included. But it's an odd one to promote. But like Rob said, I think it's just big deals with big businesses. Like, if you can swing it around and say, oh, look, Microsoft has also made a deal with the number one mobile network, and then the number one fridge supplier, and then the number one gas producer in the UK. It's just one of those things you can tweet out and go, oh, look, we're making deals that solidify this Activision Blizzard thing is a good move.
This could go further as well, though, because it's a 10-year cloud gaming commitment, so specifically about cloud gaming. And we've seen, like, the rise of, like, kind of portable hardware for gaming. So, I mean, we talked on the PS last week about Sony getting into it. This week, Microsoft are apparently experimenting with the Steam Deck. What if Microsoft brought out, like, a Game Pass device that focused entirely around cloud gaming? Because unlike Sony, you can get the latest and greatest Microsoft titles through the cloud.
Yeah. And it works.
That could be an exclusive thing for EE. So if you have an EE contract, you could maybe share data. Because one of my criticisms of these portable consoles effectively is they're meant to be portable, but most of them don't allow you to use mobile data, which means you're tethered to wherever there's Wi-Fi.
Yeah. It's just Microsoft making deals with everyone. I think, remember, they've made deals recently with Boostroid, Ubisoft, they did GeForce Now as well. So it just seems like everyone who's willing to work with them, they're just going down the checklist of going, yep. These are all in-house. Look at us, CMA and FCA and all of the other regulating parties. We're good. We're playing ball with everybody for at least a decade. So please sign it off, because everybody's fed up with talking about it.
Yeah. I think it's one of them where it's clear that it will go through at this point. So it might as well just get it over the line.
Mm-hmm.
I know there is people still trying to sue Microsoft for it, which I'm not quite sure why. I haven't dug into why, but on the surface, you're suing a games company for trying to buy another games company, which you do not own. What's the legal issue?
They're American. They'll be American.
Yeah. But yeah, I understand Sony's position. In Sony's position on the surface is actually a very solid position. Call of Duty, one of the biggest games on the planet, is effectively a genre into itself. They're worried about Microsoft having ownership of that as their biggest competitor. That's a reasonable position. But around a bunch of random gamers, just enjoy your games, guys.
No, that's not what gaming's about on the internet, Richie. It's about being pissed off at something.
We're gamers on the internet. Play wherever makes you the happiest.
Yeah, and we're doing it wrong, okay?
Yeah.
More
Exception
anger.
to the rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe if we just doubled down on hatred and vile, we could get more followers, get more subs,
Yeah,
more
let's
views.
talk about Redfall a bit more.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
All right. If we want to go negative, let's talk about Ubisoft Plus.
Oh, that was
Sorry.
that was a transition. Ouch.
Sorry,
What
that was
about-
overly harsh. But
What
it's just
about-
the news.
What about the
Ubisoft-
shit show of a catalogue that is Ubisoft Plus, Richie? You tell me about it.
I'm actually generally in favour of Ubisoft Plus as a concept. Straight up, I think it's actually well priced. I like the fact that it gives you access to their entire library, and I like the fact that you can also still just buy the games. For me, it literally is a win-win. My downside with Ubisoft Plus is pretty much everything I've always talked about with Ubisoft games. They're always good, but never seem to reach for great.
And they go on sale very, very quickly as well.
Yeah.
If you miss a launch window of a Ubisoft game, give it about 3 weeks and it'll probably be down at 60%, and then give it 2 months and it'll be in a 2-for-1 offer somewhere in a bargain bin.
Well, that's
Crazy.
one of the part of the conversation we had in our Discord server. It comes down to it's almost like horses for courses with Ubisoft Plus. I mean, it starts at $12.99 a month, although I think that might be the base version. I think for Xbox you're looking closer at £15 a month for it. But the way I see it is, if I was looking at say Assassin's Creed Mirage and went, I must play this day one.
Mm-hmm.
That game was probably, I think it's meant to be about £40, isn't it, on launch?
Yeah, they've not. I don't think they've officially.
It's meant to be a smaller title.
Pre-order, yeah.
It's a smaller title, but yeah, I'm using it as an example. But if I can access that game for £15 instead of £40, and you don't care about it just being perpetually in your library, it makes more sense for me to just get a month of Ubisoft Plus while I play for that game, and then maybe dabble with the rest of the library, such as things like Riders Republic, Far Cry, Ghost Recon, Watch Dogs, whatever. That it just makes more sense for me to then just sub to Ubisoft Plus for the length of time I'm playing that. Because even if I'm going for 3 months, I'm still effectively better off than just buying one Ubisoft title day and date. But
Now,
it really depends on your perspective. But if you don't need to play day and date, and you can wait for a sale, then do that.
Now, this blog post, Richie, about Ubisoft Plus multi-access does have a long list of all the games available, like the countries. Do you want to go through this list A through Z as well?
I'll do them in...
I will go through the list right now. I know
I'll go through the
1800.
list, but I will
Assassin's
not read
Creed Rogue Remastered. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag brackets includes Assassin's Creed Liberation, which I assume has been fixed to actually work now.
How long do I let them go for?
Assassin's Creed Unity
Cut 'em off now.
brackets
Cut 'em off now.
Gold Edition.
Grow
Assassin's
with,
Creed Valhalla Ultimate
Watch Dogs 2
Edition.
Gold Edition and Zombie. There you go. You can read the rest of the list yourself.
With Ubisoft Plus multi-access, serious question. A lot of people presume this would form part of Game Pass. Is there a world where Ubisoft Plus blends in with Game Pass at some point in the future? Because you've got to imagine that question was tabled from both parties. Who does this benefit the most, and what does the pricing structure look like? And Ubisoft or Microsoft at the end of the day have settled with, we're going to go with multi-access, you pay for it separately. I think depending on Ubisoft's fortunes, maybe in the near future, is whether this comes to Game Pass, similar to EA Play.
I think the answer is 100% yes, and all we need to do is look at PlayStation to see how it's going to be implemented.
Classic.
PlayStation, yeah, the classics. So you're not going to get the full library, but some games will be rotated through your Game Pass in and out. But if you want the full library, you can pay for Ubisoft Plus, which I think is fine. Like, the price is not so extortionate. Again, when you're comparing the price of a month subscription compared to the price of a AAA Ubisoft game on release, which it's significantly cheaper. So I think it's fine every game doesn't come to Game Pass. But maybe on the run-up to, say, for example, Mirage, if they drop Valhalla, the base version of Valhalla on Game Pass for a couple of months, I can see that kind of sort of integration. The sort of thing to whet people's appetite for the next big thing. Drop Far Cry 6 before the Far Cry 7 comes out, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, we've seen them do that a couple of times previously, and it makes total sense to, like you said, whet people's appetites. But yeah,
it's glad Park games just because they're awesome.
Indeed. Glad it's finally here. It's been a long time coming. It's odd that it came to PlayStation so much sooner, but it's here. Subscribe, and as you said, once you've got the Ubisoft Plus multi-access, similar to what we were praising Game Pass for, is you can play them on PC or on any other service. Like, once you've got the subscription, you are not limited to that. So in a twist of fate, you can play it on any platform if you're on the multi-access.
Yeah, and I think last story for the week now, the official Xbox Australia and New Zealand Twitter account has teased something to do with musical instruments. So we have a banjo, a kazoo, and a balloon in the shape of the letter E. I wonder what this could be.
Let's put our thinking caps on. Let's decipher this amazingly strong code.
Banjo, kazoo, E. Ukulele.
We're
going to get another ukulele game.
Account.
This is the official Australia New Zealand account. Yeah.
Yeah, I still can't keep up with like what badges mean what now on Twitter.
I must admit, I did do a bit of digging to check, but looking at the level of followers, and I think it's because it's got the gold check mark, makes it a verified account as opposed to a blue check mark, which means you just paid for something to make you look like a verified account. Followed
by Phil Spencer and Xbox Wire,
yeah.
So it's being returned followed by official people as well.
And almost 100k followers.
I feel like this is just Australians trolling people.
I mean, they've already announced like a Starfield and Xbox showcase, and now they're teasing Banjo-Kazooie. It's
right,
weird that's coming from Australia, New Zealand.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's the ANZ account.
Is it their April Fool's Day on April 11th, maybe at 7:46 a.m. in the morning? It is an odd one. Does anyone really care about Banjo-Kazooie anymore outside of nostalgia?
Yeah.
I think it is straight up nostalgia. However, it could fill a gap in the Microsoft library, a mascot platformer.
But then if this deal goes through, they're going to own Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, so is there space for Banjo on there? And
Banjo survived on the N64 alongside Mario.
Yeah, but that was 20 plus years ago, Richie.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think there will. I wouldn't take it as like a top premium title, but I think it's like aimed at a younger audience, a mascot platformer. I think there's always room for stuff in that genre. I don't think that's a genre that's currently like oversaturated at the moment.
We also need to remember children do exist.
Yeah.
Of all three of us, need to remember children exist as well.
You've recently acquired one.
Yeah, from the local shop. But in terms of audience members,
not
Game
Pass refer to your wife.
Didn't mean it that way. But anyway, yes, it's Banjo-Kazooie just adds to Game Pass. It's another avenue for Game Pass to thrive on for all parties.
I feel like we might not be reading this clue correctly because if we go upside down, it becomes 3 Kazoojo, which could be a new original Australian-based IP.
Made by Hideo Kojima.
Yeah.
This is his rumoured game that is for Game Pass, for Xbox Cloud Gaming. What would you do if this rumoured Kojima Xbox Game Pass cloud gaming game was literally Banjo-Kazooie? It was just completely like... That would probably, in some ways, it'd be almost the most Kojima move ever, because it'd just catch everyone out by surprise.
Or having Banjo just like shooting bees out of his face or something.
Yeah, it's like gameplay of Banjo-Kazooie, but with like kind of Death Stranding like presentation and the overly convoluted like storylines of Metal Gear Solid.
And like a 7-minute sequence of climbing up a ladder as well.
I mean, Banjo realistically is just like a Metal Gear for Kazooie to ride in, if we think about it.
Let us know in the comments below. Let us know in the comments below exactly what sort of game you would want, Banjo-Kazooie game you would want Hideo Kojima to make, because that's all we have time for this week.
Before we leave,
before.
It's been on my mind all show, but I thought our audience should know. Richie's had his toggles tucked in on his hoodie this whole show. Now go back and laugh at it.
Audio listeners,
now, nerd.
Well, there's a treat for audio listeners. Now you need to go watch the entire.
Before we go again, did you tuck them in because you were brushing your teeth and you didn't want them to go in the sink? Or
I didn't even know they were tucked in. It's probably just when I put the hoodie on, like
because I do that so they don't fall in the sink while I'm brushing my teeth. And then it genuinely might have been that, like, you know, one of them kind of subconscious things that you just do, you don't even realise you've done. Yeah.
But yeah.
That's
so
been a great
audio
show.
Listeners, now we need to go to the YouTube channel and watch that entire show.
Yeah,
it's new fashion trend.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't tucked mine in because I don't have a Helix Plays hoodie. So
see, Rob's not fashionable like me and Chris.
Mm.
And to
you
be fair,
took something else in, Rob.
I've only just noticed Chris is wearing his Helix Plays game hoodie as well. So, but again, that's all we have time for this week. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like button and sub to the channel or your podcast feed of choice with notifications turned on, so you're kept in the loop with whatever games, Banjo-Kazooie games, Hideo Kojima's making for Xbox. There's a Discord server where you can discuss things like the aforementioned Banjo-Kazooie game, Redfall only having 30 frames per second at launch. What do you think about Minecraft Legends, which I think we're probably going to be streaming this week?
I think so, yeah. It's baby's first... Not babies first, that's an insult. An entry point into Minecraft and RTS games. I was like, we're all massive RTS fans, so yeah, let's build a castle together, guys, and attack whoever. The little piglets, I think they're called piglings. Yeah, are the enemy. So yeah, should be fun.
We need to discuss when all three of us are going to be free for that, because I think it'd be awesome to have all three of us on us.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, but anyway, thank you very much for watching. I've been Richie.
I've been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
We'll see you later. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.